So I want to invite one of our investors, Dell Capital, Chris. Please join us. He's gonna moderate a session now with Justin Woody. Okay, have a great session, guys.
Thanks. We got two mics, so I'll give Chris mic check.
This work?
All right.
Hey, everybody. Great to meet everyone. My name is Chris Hillock. I'm one of the partners with Dell Technologies Capital. We're Michael Dell's early stage venture firm. Most of the team sits in Palo Alto. I'm one of the partners based here. We also have a presence in kind of New York, New England, and in Tel Aviv. We do all early stage enterprise tech related investing, generally seed to series B across the enterprise ecosystem, starting at the bottom of the stack, foundational silicon, going northbound, cloud infrastructure, data, AI, edge computing, cyber, automation, robotics, cloud investors in Twine, Intro, Dscope, maybe a couple other companies that are here. Let's see, what else? We've been investing since 2012. We invest about $150 million a year in early stage companies. We don't raise a fund, so we don't really promote our brand very often. We really prefer to try to promote the brands of the companies and the founders that we're working with. But we've been a really successful firm. We've done about 180 investments since 2012. We've had 85 exits, 10 IPOs. We were the first institutional investor in Zscaler, early in MongoDB, DocuSign, Nutanix, Arista Networks, JFrog, Netscope, to name a couple. We've got about a dozen unicorns in the portfolio today and about 75 active portfolio companies. So really great to meet everybody. If you're building and you're in the area, we'd love to meet with you if we haven't spoken yet, and I'd love to learn more about you. Justin, why don't we turn to you? Maybe just do quick intros, a little bit about yourself, your background, a little bit about what Twine.
I mean,
Twine
that's
does.
just a few names there you listed. We're like, Twine's going to be one of those. Twine knows. Yeah, so, no, thanks, guys. I'm Justin. I'm one of the co-founders of Twine. I feel like a white rhino a little bit in the room here because we are actually not protecting agents. We're building them. Like we are out there designing things that are going to look to execute in your identity environments. I think Hillock said, I am for AI or AI for IAM. We're definitely the second one because we're building the digital employee that will actually augment your team. So that's kind of the high level of what Twine is building. We've been around a couple of years and been pretty successful.
Awesome. Well, I originally thought we could start by talking about the size and scale of the problem around non-human identities, but I think we've probably beaten that to death a little bit over the last couple hours. So, but maybe what we could do is talk a little bit about why existing solutions around IAM are falling short. The current challenges customers and enterprises are having and existing problems that they're struggling with around existing tooling and technology.
Yeah, I think for me, the problem is what I call identity entropy, right? When we put a solution in place, it's like pristine. Everything is good. Our processors are there. We have our teams and everything else. And over time, right, it slowly starts to decay, and we start the gaps between the tools and the problems become bigger and bigger. And I think if we've all been here this morning and talked about a lot of the acceleration and what AI is doing. Like these gaps are becoming bigger and bigger. And traditionally, what we've done is we've said, hey, we're going to put some people, we're going to use the people as a connecting tissue to connect tools and cover these gaps. And it's very clear after listening to the conversations that the gaps are getting so big that the people can no longer do that. And this is where I think the problem is that we're trying to fix is that let's augment the teams so we can have individuals not just connecting it, but also driving outcomes, because that's what we ultimately want. We don't actually want more tools. We want to use the tools to drive outcomes to reduce risk.
Is thinking about agents as identities the right approach, right methodology, and ultimately in enterprises, who should really be the owner of this moving forward?
I think you have to, right? I look around the companies here. Like we look at it a little differently in that aspect. We really look at saying, how do we as a digital employee be able to execute and keep up with that? You ask about like who owns it. The big thing I see in the industry is that right now we have people that are IAM analysts. We have people that are doing access and provisioning tickets. And I think that these people are going to take a step back, and you're going to have agentic entities like ourselves that are actually going to be doing the work. And people are going to take a step back and actually have a command center approach. And so they're going to be the ones that are augmenting and telling agents what to do, and so they're going to be the ones owning it. So everyone currently on the front line is going to take a step back.
It seems to me that we're sort of pushing towards this idea of co-pilots and agent assistants to help augment the workload, the monotony of the workload that employees are are driving today. Is that the right end game, or do we think that there's sort of a chapter beyond co-pilots and active agents?
Well, I wouldn't be here if the question wasn't absolutely. What we see is that organizations early on, like in the first couple steps, they'll say, all right, let's see what our co-pilots can do. Let's see what Claude coworker can do. Let's see what Salesforce, their AI agents can do. It works with that person. And perhaps, Chris, if you were using it, it could probably you, right? And make you as efficient as you were. But then everyone on your team, let's say you have 30 people on your team, that's a 60-person team at that point if you use a co. That's very linear, right? And we don't think that linear is the way to go. We think that it should be compounding exponential. So instead of just task by task, how do you use an agent to be that compounding growth? And this is where I think the big jump is between like a co-pilot, great, like it can help you do your jobs faster and quicker. But if you look at what an organization wants to accomplish, you can only use co-pilots to do tasks, and it'll only get you so far.
Let's talk about balancing maybe speed and trust and access to systems, access to data. When I talk to most enterprise customers today, I get the sense that there's a lot of modernization happening around employee use of agentic platforms, ChatGPT, obviously software development. But when it comes to connecting into enterprise data, there seems to be, a heavy pause. And I think there's this notion of balancing running fast with risk. And so obviously a huge portion of that risk mitigation and logically will be human in the loop, right? And I think, customers right now are talking about sort of balancing trust with verification, which is probably okay now with the size and scale of adoption. But over time, how realistic, how pragmatic is this notion of human in the loop? How pervasive will it be? And how will that work? And at what point will that sort of break?
Yeah, the idea is you don't want to make people busier, right? Like that's counterintuitive. When we talk to customers, like I feel like they fit into two different buckets. The first type of customer will be like, show me what you got, like show me how it works and show me the latest and greatest, like it actually doing work. And then the second type of customer will say, all right, how do you protect my data? I don't want to talk about the first. Let's just assume you can do it. But how do you protect my data and how do you not cause disruption in my environment, right? And it's two very different. Like one is the second one is much more of a mature customer. They probably had some failures in the agentic space already. And so there's some battle scars and war wounds there. And whenever they start with that conversation, we know that they're like a serious buyer. And the human in the loop idea, the way we're thinking about it is a lot of times you'll have 1,000 decisions to make. That's just too many, right? The way we approach it is, all right, let's make decision about one, right? And give us a thumbs up or thumbs down to see how that works. And do your due diligence on that one, right? And then the second one, oh, by the way, there's one just like that. Do some diligence on that. And pretty soon we'll say, all right, here's the whole bucket of 500 that are almost exactly the same with just slight nuances. And now go ahead and like give us a thumbs up for that entire bucket. And so human in the loop is really for the first 1, 2, 3, and then you accelerate it by categories from there. And we've seen this be wildly successful.
Okay, got it. And then what about, seems like process discovery, process mapping is an important part of that. But there seems to be a chasm between the way processes are talked about, maybe documented, and the way real work actually gets done in companies and in environments. What's your view on how much adaptive learning is going to be required? And then how do you think about architecting agents and systems that are persistent, but then also are evolutionary and adaptive?
So I think this is one of the key things when you talk about agentic digital employees like we're building, like how do we continue to grow? Right? Like we can easily assign tasks and say, hey, go do this every time. And that's basically automation, like smart automation, agentic automation, whatever. But I think you've hit on the right spot. How do we get to grow and continue? And the way we do it is we find a couple spots in a person's environment where I'm going to call it a knowledge hose, right? Where can we tap into to get the intimate details about how a corporation actually functions? And like you can look at SOPs, and you can look at the SharePoints and things like that, but it's like point in time. They're probably updated 1 year or 2, 5 years ago. Right? You don't get that pure essence. So for us, we look at where are the clear spots where knowledge is being decided and decisions are being made every day. And then we tap into that and we just listen. And we listen, and then we start making recommendations like, hey, we've listened here. We think that you should probably do this, right? Whether it's in ticketing, whether it's in access rights, whether it's in RBAC, entitlements, and we can start making move from there.
Got it. Okay, great. You guys are obviously pushing the envelope pretty hard today. If you look out a year or 2 years from now, what do you envision that customers are going to be doing in terms of leveraging your technology and other agentic workloads that they're not using today? And then how are you helping guide and consult and help customers sort of prepare for that change?
Yeah, so I'll answer that, but then I have a question for you afterwards, if that's okay. So, you know, Bill Gates has this quote that says, hey, you're often overestimate the change is going to happen in 2 to 3 years, but underestimate what's going to happen in 10 years. I think we're here, but let's just shrink that down into AI years, right? Like, I think that we're in 3 years and 2 years, like the idea that we're going to take all our frontline employees, move them back into command center type of approach and be directing agents is what's going to happen. And for me, there's no ambiguity around that. So all the folks around here that are building tools to protect that's great, because you guys are going to do fantastic. I think if I could, one thing that I could say that I recommend is use agents to clean your data and make data better, because better data equals better results. So maybe I can ask you a question, Chris. Like, you guys are in a unique position to see all kinds of cool tech. I look, the companies here, we're probably 1, 2, 5, whatever years old. You get to see like the infancy. Like, what do you see from infancy coming, like, that's relevant for us?
Well, I think as it relates to identity, I think some of the things that we're seeing is if you look back, over the last 10, 15 years, we've gone through these different waves. And as these different waves have come about, it's enabled incremental new technology, but also created new exposure surfaces and new opportunities for technological advancement. As it relates to identity, I think we used to think about securing the perimeter, right? And it was either like you were in the network or you were out of the network, right? And then with mobility, with cloud, with work from home, there was this sort of shift of the perimeter was really porous, and so started to transcend to, well, okay, let's secure the identity, right? And then, now we're seeing this advent of, not just the human identities, but machine identity and the proliferation there. I think, this next wave that we're going to see is going to be more of a continuation. I think, one of the things, I think we were talking about OpenClaw earlier, workloads have this, and agent workloads have had this generally kind of guidance towards deterministic type of behavior. And I think we're going to start to see that shift towards more probabilistic type of behavior. And if you have probabilistic type of behavior, you can't just look at an identity and say, okay, well, you're authorized to do this function and just assume it's going to do that function. And do it in a static manner. I think we're going to really need to look at systems that are more like real-time oriented and are more behavioral focused and are kind of continuously monitoring, continuously governing. Actually, I heard someone earlier make a comment about treating agents like threat actors. And I think that's actually a really great analogy, right? I think you're going to have to look at each of these identities as each of these workloads as dynamic, and at any given time they may be trusted, but they may also not be trusted. That's the next thing that we'll see, is this more sort of like ephemeral based, real-time based requirement to monitor workloads and then be prepared to kill or stop workloads and kind of mitigate blast radius at any given point in time.
Awesome. Well, I think that wraps it up for us, Chris.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.